Hello, welcome. My name is Denicia Butte, Community Content Lead at the Cardano Foundation, and welcome to Roundtable Talk number 8. Today, we'll be diving into the intricacies of the net change limit and everything that comes with it, from the budgeting process, treasury withdrawals, to basically how that affects also timelines. With me are some really great subject matter experts, each with in depth knowledge of the governance process and also the budget process. Allow me to briefly introduce, or allow them to briefly introduce themselves, starting with Mercy. We'll move to Jenny, Christina, and then down the line. Mercy, please.
Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. Thank you, Denisio. Yeah, my name is Mercy. I have been part of the Cardano ecosystem since late 2017, sort of early 2018. Was part of the early group that formed WADA Global. What we try to do in terms of the endemic barriers and so on within Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa. What we aim to do was to sort of make these emerging technologies, Cardano in particular, accessible to young people in sub-Saharan Africa. It's been great. We were part of Catalyst since Fund 1. Since then, we've been part of various governance actions. Myself, been part of the civics committee, joined various working groups, currently now quite new still in the budget committee. I love all things governance, and I'm very, very happy to be here. Over to you, Jenny.
How can I follow that? I am Jenny. I'm part of Cardano Over Coffee. We run this space for the community Monday to Friday, where we host a lot of community members and talk about all kinds of subjects related to the ecosystem. I'm also part of the Interim Constitutional Committee as part of one of the members of the Cardano Atlantic Council. And also, I'm in the Governance Parameters Working Group, where we work together alongside Nico here present and others, the ecosystem. And yeah, I've been here for a while. I'm not going anywhere.
Hi, my name is Christina Gianaloni. I have not been here very long. I actually joined Cardano about 18 months ago. And I think the first space that I actually dived into was NFT community. They were super welcoming and more than happy to teach me a lot of things. And I bought a lot of NFTs, so they certainly didn't mind helping with that either. and then I jumped into Catalyst. I really liked Catalyst. I like it's the way that it can help grow the community and help the projects grow. And I got very involved there with the town hall, the after town hall, the Discord server. And of course, I'm COO of Blink Labs. We're generally known as the Go people at Cardano. And I am the lead administrator of Pragma. And I work with Jenny on Cardano Over Coffee. So I love to get around in the community and talk with people and see what everybody's up to.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andreas. Difficult to follow the footsteps of my previous introducers. I'm the CEO of the Cardano Foundation. And since I joined the foundation, I'm involved in the SIP 1694 process, where I was pivoted to go to Edinburgh. Then afterwards came the process around the Constitution, the Interim Constitution, and also was happy to join everyone in Argentina. It was an amazing experience. And a part of my daily duties is marketing, project management, where we also do all the work with Catalyst. And then I'm also privy to join from time to time the budget committee as a deputy for our member Rita, that is our director of finance in the Cardano Foundation. Happy to talk with every one of you about these topics. Thank you.
Great to have you, Andreas. Jose.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Thanks for showing up for this very boring topic, although a very important topic as well, very technical, and coping with a bunch of nerds that we all are here, very passionate people. I've just to introduce myself a little bit. I'm currently serving in the civics committee. Have the privilege to be chairing it for a few weeks now. But I'm also involved in the Interim Constitutional Committee, supporting one of the seats there for Intersect Council. I've been involved in the blockchain space since 2016 in other ecosystems, came to Cardano 2021, and left everything else. Just love it. I love the community. I love the ethos, love the sense of purpose. And as many here, I've been involved in with several different hats. So I was also in Catalyst at the beginning. I was there in several roles, helping out with reviewing projects, proposing projects, got funded, executing projects. I was involved with the Latin Cardano community since its inception. I'm still working passionately to push that forward. And then got involved through representing the Latin Cardano community stance on governance. We went to Edinburgh for the CIP 1694 workshops, and then met many of the people here, joined the efforts to draft the Constitution. So I helped with the drafting of the Interim Constitution, and then with the final draft that was brought to the community for consultation, and then helped also designing all the consultation process and the ratification process. So very happy to see this week we have a newborn constitution enacted. That's me. Oh, sorry. I'm also a university professor on blockchain in the business school, and I am an economist.
Great to have you. Thank you, Jose. Lawrence.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Lawrence Clark. I'm heading up operations for Intersect, so I oversee HR, finance, and legal for the company. I've actually been in the space for now 4 years. I was previously with IOG in the operational space as well, supporting them behind the scenes, aligning legal, etc. And obviously now working to, I set up the board for Intersect on the 8th of December 2023, and kind of been rolling through as the company secretary, supporting the board's needs and helping build out the company that is Intersect today.
Thank you, Lawrence. Also great to have you. Lloyd.
Hey, thank you, Denicio. Hello, everyone. I'm Lloyd Duhan. I've been around Cardano since around 2018, late 2018 myself. I know a lot of you met in person at many of the events over the last few years. Everybody in this room has been participating in governance and really driving it forward. I'm just yet another one of those participants who's been here and trying to help move the governance of Cardano into the Voltaire era. So I'm excited to be here and talk budgets today. As Jose said, the boring topic of budgets. Let's go. And Nico, on to you.
Thank you, Lloyd. And hi, everyone. Also, hi to everyone watching. My name is Nicolas Czerny. I'm the governance lead at the Cardano Foundation. And as it's already in my title, I'm focused mainly on Cardano governance. Started with the CIP 1694 draft, where I was really involved in the discussions there, but more because just I was interested in it. And then I gradually grew into this position, and I was involved. Like, I'm also a civics committee member. Love to participate there alongside Jose, Mercy, and other great members. I was also part of the drafting working group with the Constitution. I have set up created the processes around how we do governance in the Cardano Foundation. So our role as an ICC member, as a DREP, with my colleagues, of course. And yeah, it's for me, it's the greatest thing to talk about governance all day, every day. And I'm very happy to be here.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, you all, for introducing yourselves. Before we dive into this, I think it's really good to acknowledge also the viewers. So thank you all who's joining or tuning in on X, Twitter, or also on YouTube. We have Shatram, we have B, we see you there as well, Soner, Wada, we have Litasan or Litsi-san, Mauricio, and I'm pretty sure many of you also joining in but have not yet connected via the chat. I guess we can definitely just dive right in right now with just the first opening question, and please feel free anyone to take that question. So, can we who from the panelists here dares to walk us through the budget process as described in the Constitution in context of the newly enacted Constitution from February 23rd? Mainly, we'd like to know what key steps should the community be aware of that process. Who'd like to take that?
Yeah, I'd be really happy to take a stab at this. And please, everyone, feel free to interrupt me if I'm missing anything. So as Jose mentioned, right, since Sunday, actually, we have a new constitution on Cardano that was approved by the ADA holders, by the DREPs, so the ADA holders that delegated to them, which makes it the first, in my opinion, I did some research, the first real blockchain constitution that was approved by the holders of the token. So that's, first of all, a really great achievement. And thanks to everyone that was involved in that voted for it, that participated in the drafting and everything. And in this constitution, we now have a dedicated article that talks about the Cardano blockchain ecosystem budget. And I'll try now to summarize the main points of what this article says. So first things first, it says that any Cardano community member can propose a Cardano blockchain ecosystem budget at all times. The thing that needs to be adhered to is that budget must be used to cover the costs related to the ongoing operation, maintenance, and future development of the Cardano blockchain ecosystem, and also to keep up and maintain this on-chain governance model, this on-chain governance process. Then it also says that we should use smart contracts and blockchain-based tools for developing these budgets. And also that each budget must define a process for overseeing these funds, and that we have to have one or more administrators of these budgets. So that's just from the process side. And then there's a few other points that I would like to highlight, which is that budgets, right? When we talk about budgets, it's also crucial to say that Treasury withdrawals that are connected to these budgets should never violate the then applicable net change limit. The net change limit is something a bit more special. We talk about that in a bit. But yeah, this is, so the main part really to quickly remember is that anybody can submit the Cardano budget proposal at all times. Budgets need to cover the cost related to the ongoing operation, maintenance, and future development. So you cannot just say, I want to buy, I don't know, a house and define it like that. That would already violate that. And then we should use smart contracts wherever possible. And we must have an audit process and an overseeing administrative process set up for these kind of budgets. But I'm sure I've probably someone else has something to add here.
Thanks, Nico. And yeah, I just, like Nico, I've been, this part obviously for me is pretty deep as far as, we've been working in the budget process itself since before we have this constitution, right? We had an interim constitution in place first, and the interim constitution had the idea of an annual Cardano budget. So we began the process looking at an annual Cardano budget and what that would look like, and kind of trying to get everybody in a room together or virtual room together and hash out at what should be in that budget, and then putting that on chain. And so we moved from that to this new concept: multiple budgets, multiple administrators, any time of the year. So here we are, and so we're having to obviously make some changes and adaptations as we go to adapt to this new reality. So that's been an interesting part of this journey right now. And then the other thing, it's using the smart contracts, Nico, where beneficial, right? So that's an important distinction there, because there are going to be elements and times where smart contracts aren't necessarily beneficial, and so we have to be aware of both. And so I just think it was good wisdom in the Constitution that they use the term beneficial, because it does where it makes sense we should be using smart contracts, and where it doesn't we shouldn't. But but that is it's a great part, and yes, using the chain and obviously doing that for as much of the budget process as we can. All for it and looking forward to how it's going to develop. So.
Okay, thank you there, Lloyd. Is there anyone else who would like to let's extend
I'll
on
add
that?
something. I'll add something to the actual original question, which is also important to highlight that this all needs to be voted by the reps and it needs to be approved by the Constitutional Committee or the ICC as it is right now, which is soon to be CC, voted all by the people. So that's an important thing to highlight. And what else? The process gets carried through an info action also, which means it stays out for voting for 6 epochs. So that's something else that is factual, I guess.
Yeah, maybe I'll throw in, so just for everyone and might not be familiarized with the whole dynamic, is in order to be able to access the Treasury funds, you need to send a governance action called Treasury withdrawal. And any Treasury withdrawal has a condition, in order for it to be constitutional, that it has to be linked to a budget that has been approved by the community, i.e. the DREPs. And that budget or budgets, there could be more than one, need to be approved only if there is a net change limit that also has been approved by the community. So it's kind of a 3-phase until you get to access the funds. So there will be several months before we get there, because every governance action needs to be around 6 weeks. Some of them could be shorter if everyone has a overwhelming approval of it. But it's usually six epochs, sorry, not 6 weeks, 6 epochs, 5 days each epoch. So it's about a month and a half, a little bit less. Sometimes it's about a month, maybe. So what happens is that we still have to agree on what we want to do about the net change limit, which is what we're here to talk about. Then a budget will be submitted after that. And then withdrawal actions will be submitted after the budgets have been approved.
This is actually really good. And while we're on the topic of the net change limit, because obviously that sounds to me to be a very crucial component, a requirement basically before you can actually get to the point where you can submit even, let's say, a Treasury withdrawal. Who would like to explain the role really of, or not the role, but why the governance or why the NCL, the net change limit, was introduced in the first place?
I can take that, and I will likely hand it over to Jose to sort of tease it out a bit more. So the reason for the net change limit, as we all know, Cardano, we have a healthy treasury. Hopefully it lasts many, many generations to come, but we cannot assume that, right? So what the net change limit does is that we come together as a community and we decide that this is the way that we can keep the treasury sustainable over many years, many decades, however we want to do that. There was a lot of discussions had about this net change limit, in the sense that it's a balancing act, right? Between, let's hold on to the treasury, let's be very conservative, let's make sure that we have it forever. So let's spend very, very little every year, right? Or whatever, however we decide that net change limit period should be. And then the other side of that argument or that discussion is we need to increase transaction limits. We need to build a protocol. We need to make it a world operating system. So, like how much can we take, let's say, over a period of time to make sure that we're actually building the protocol and developing the ecosystem. So that is where sort of the discussion is with the net change limit. As Jose said, the net change limit relates to the budget in the sense that for every period that we have that net change limit, the budget cannot exceed the net change limit, because as a community, we have come together to agree that over this set period of time, this is how much we think should come out of the Treasury that is sustainable, both to develop the protocol and also to develop the ecosystem. I think I will hand this over to Jose. He has a lot of insights when it comes to net change limit, or maybe Denisio.
Before we go to Jose, thank you, Brother University. Before we go to Jose, I must say today I was given an insight by Nicholas, and there was the draft Constitution Committee, and I believe, Jose, correct me if I'm wrong, you played a crucial role in designing the net change limit. There was an initial idea, initial concept to that, and I think that initial concept involved designing increments. So instead of having, let's say, an annual withdrawal allowance or the ability to withdraw on an annual basis, do that more or less on a quarterly basis or increments, basically protecting or making sure that we're utilizing the Treasury in a sustainable way, and in that way also protecting the ecosystem. But I think you're able to explain that in a much better way. Please.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to lead into the what I wanted to say is that, well, originally the concept came to be created as a consequence of a conversation around resiliency. So we were discussing how do we create a governance framework and a macroeconomic framework and just a whole governance system that maximizes the staying power of Cardano, right? So if any blockchain's value is to the promise of lowering exponentially the cost of trust, part of that trust is knowing that Cardano is going to be here tomorrow and the next month and the next year, the next decade, and it's going to be here in 100 years. So when we were discussing how to create a constitution, how to create a governance system, we were thinking in 1,000 years time frame. That's why, and that was actually part of the conversation. Let's think this. How does it look for 1,000 years? What do we need to put there so that Cardano is here for many, many generations? And resiliency was kind of that metric. So we were discussing, okay, so we have many tools and we have a treasury. So how do we manage that treasury? And there's a philosophical question there. Do we want a sovereign fund that it's there in perpetuity that will provide some funding that guarantees some operation, maybe not everything, but some operation of the network forever? Or do we ensure that Cardano achieves critical size in order to have its own momentum guarantees its perpetuity? And so we spend fast. And, we designed a policy that, lets us achieve the goal of spending the whole treasury in 5 years or 5 or 15 or 10 or whatever number that is. And make sure that if Cardano fails in this fragile new years, it's not because of lack of spending, right? So, and there's of course everything in between. So then we say, well, how do we measure that? What leverage do we use? What levers, do we use to be able to manage that? If we want to go for the sovereign fund approach or for the, innovation fund approach. And then we say, well, we need to regulate the lifetime of the treasury. And then we came up with, okay, well, we need to guarantee that within any 2 points in time, there's a net change, a maximum net change. And it was thought in a diminishing side. It could increase, of course, if needed, but it was thought only in the case we needed to decrease. And that's how it came to, and initially it was proposed in a paper we wrote here in Latam and proposed in Edinburgh a year and a half ago. And back then we said, well, probably 12 epochs is a good period of time, just because it wasn't any particular design or logic between 12 epochs. We just thought it would be okay.
Get it.
And so, but it was a moving time frame. It was a window. So every 5 days, the window would move. So you would compare the balance, the initial balance and the final balance of that period of time. And then after 5 days, you would check again on the new times, on the new dates, right? And at no point there could be more than, let's say, 1% or 0.5% or whatever percentage, but as a percentage of the initial balance. And then you can only move that parameter of the net change limit to adjust the lifespan of the Treasury over time, regardless of the size of the Treasury, right? So it wasn't meant to regulate a budget originally. It was meant to regulate the speed of spending, because it also has implications on how much new tokens come into the economy, right? So how much circulating data we have. And by basic demand and offer laws, we know that we have a sudden peak in offer. The most likely thing is that price will go down dramatically. We have not measured that, so we don't really know how much would a sudden peak in the offer of data in the market would affect the price. We don't know how much, but we know it would affect it. So we said we should have a tool to manage that, and that's how it came to life.
Wonderful. I think that ties perfectly into what Yojo is saying. What Yojo is saying here. He says simulation tools needed to show, not tell the story, as you know. And then Yojo is referring to Jose and to you, Mercy. Okay, that said, I think we can dive right into the, let's say, the nitty-gritty really of the conversation. But before we move to that, Nicholas, Andreas, anyone else on the panel, Lawrence, would you like to, Christina, would you like to add anything to this, what has just been said?
I think they've summed it up reasonably well, to be fair. I mean, the net change limit is there to protect the Treasury. It's there to guide the budgets and to allow the D-reps to approve the budgets. I mean, that's exactly as Jose's put out in the details. I think there's far more other challenging objects we'll have as we go forward. But step number one is we've got to get the net change limit agreed now with the D-reps and the community.
Okay, wonderful. This is perfectly a perfect bridge really to the following question as well. That is, what challenges or risk do you foresee if the budget proposals are submitted and actively socialized before the net change limit is determined? And how might a potential rejection of the NCL, the net change limit, impact the future process of the proposals? Why we say that is because we've just heard Jose said that there are timelines. And I think, Jenny, you also mentioned earlier, there are timelines set to proposals. So it's not, what we currently see happening is that, and Lloyd, we touched on that previously during the ambassador call. The socialization process started, instead of with the net change limit, we started first with the, Lloyd, you call that very, very perfectly, with the resource allocation, or let's say the buckets, the budgets. The order of events, that is kind of like off, because we are socializing the budgets, right? But shouldn't we have started first with the net change limit to first have an agreement ecosystem wide in terms of what is the spending cap, within what framework can we operate? Because if it's rejected, what would that mean basically to the current budgets that are now proposed? I'd like to hear
big topic, right?
Yeah.
So So, Denise, let me just a little bit of this is an example of Intersect responding to community feedback. Effectively, if you look at our older timelines, the older timeline said put out the net change limit, discuss the net change limit, and then put out the budget. And we got asked to, we don't want to see the net change limit without seeing what you're proposing for a budget. So we simultaneously released both sets. Now, here's a couple of important things about the way the process is designed. It's designed around prioritization. So it's perfectly okay if the DREPs say we're not going to spend that much money, we're only going to spend this much money. Because with prioritization in the resource allocation side, that allows us to say, well, the top priority things get funded and the lower priority things have to wait. So it actually works out okay that we have both, but it's a great question and a great point. In our original design of how we were going to release things, it was net change limit followed by budgets. But we have to respond to our members and we have to respond to the community as a whole. And the feedback we were getting is they wanted to see both at the same time. So they got to see both at the same time.
Okay, that's actually a very good clarification. Is there anyone else who'd like to chime in on this?
Sure. I do. Because it's an interesting thing, right? Nothing really says when, I mean, in my perspective, decentralization means we should take the conversation out as soon as possible, just because it's going to allow for us, which has always been kind of like my pushback on things, like get it out now, so we can really kind of work towards the same common goals, right? But it's interesting because I acknowledge there's two perspectives, right? On one hand, you have people that think that we should set the net change limit first to, practice some financial discipline, to avoid manipulation, and make sure that we're a little more disciplined when it comes down to managing our budget. Because there's things that you have to consider, right? You have to consider numbers and predictions, and where does, what is the future of this treasury, right, looking like? But then on the other side, when you allow for this to be happening at the same time, it also allows for flexibility and figuring out what's truly needed, and then be able to set a net change limit that won't keep us kind of like hinder in the middle of the process, right? And make sure that everything is taken care of. So, and an observation that I've had, which is very like kind of like up my alley, which is all about cultures and community, right? I've noticed that this is where we really start seeing our cultural differences, right? Where our perspectives are going to there's going to be a lot of friction at first, which is why it matters that we have these conversations, because, some cultures are more conservative and they are trying to be more efficient with their funds. And then there's other cultures, for example, here in the United States, we're more like, we go big, baby. It's like, it's like, this is what we want to do and we don't care how much it's going to cost. So that net change limit to me is that a base. It's that kind of like this is our balance between innovation, self-sustainability, and this autonomy that we talk about, that we want to conserve, right? That we don't want to depend on anybody else outside. We want to make sure that we continue to exist, that we can innovate, but that we exist. So it's a fine balance, and I think this is what we're going through right now.
I just want to add the importance of understanding the net change limit and the budget, and that's not it. The net change limit is the ceiling, and the budget needs to come in somewhere underneath the ceiling. And we need to make sure, and this is why I was stressing the net change limit from the beginning. We need to make sure that we allow for other projects, other potentials, future unknowns to be able to come and put something in. And there doesn't need to be fear behind it. It's not going to be grifting and money grabbing, because just like the budget, it requires approval. It's not like somebody's just going to come in and pull out a few $100 million or whatever. But to make sure we have that opportunity for those other projects, for those other plans to come out. That's all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Nicholas, can we have Lawrence first, please? Lawrence asked.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry. No, I was just going to say, actually, back in August, at Rare Evo, I think was the first time Lloyd and I presented the kind of the budget proposal and their first draft of everything. As we started the conversation, the Constitution was still being created and being thought out, etc. And we put out the net change limit as the concept of we need to get it approved. I think we said at the time between 300 and 500, because we still lots of research and analysis we hadn't done before. So the conversation started back in August, going through what the net change limit could be. And yes, through the feedback we had from the D reps at the time and other community members, they said, great, well, if you're going to set it, let's pick a number, 300, you're going to set it at 300, what's the budget going to be? How do we know that that's set high enough to incorporate everything that the others have already mentioned for the benefits of the community? So it's been rolling for a while with the net change limit, to the point I think we put it on the governance, the Gov tool last week as a proposal, again, for the D reps to view, at the 350, so they can socialize it amongst themselves and advise and guide us whether they agree or disagree to that before we raise it as an action, hopefully on Monday next week.
Oh, that's very exciting.
There you go, Nicholas.
No, that's awesome. And one thing that I also wanted to react to what Christina said about the ceiling, right? And then the budgets come in, and we need to make sure that from a constitutional point of view, right? That's the thing also that I think many people need to understand, that right now you could, in theory, have even more withdrawals. Just from a technical point of view, there is no parameter yet that defines, so an on-chain parameter that defines the net change limit. I know many here on the call are advocating for that, me included.
Yes.
And hopefully we can get that in a future node version, or even if we need a hard fork then. But what I also wanted to say is that even at a time, right? So let's assume now we have a net change limit of, let's say, 350 million ADA, just like it's proposed. I'm assuming that it now gets approved. And we notice, oh my God, there's a huge issue and we need to now all of a sudden spend way more, right? Could happen. Then it's possible to issue a new net change limit proposal to increase that. So it is possible to change it, right? This is the beauty of governance. And this is the beauty of having this model that we're implementing, that we have the flexibility to react to any kind of worst case scenario. And I think this is also something that needs to be understood, that while we, of course, do not want to overspend, right, and have this fiscal responsibility and make sure Cardano is set up for long-term success, economically sustainable, just like Jose said, there is this possibility to react to these potential unknowns that we don't know.
Sorry, I was muted there, Nicholas. True that. Well said. Thank you, Nicholas. There's a question in the chat, and the question is actually directed to Lawrence. Let's bring that up, please. Oh, sorry. Apologies for that. Lawrence, where is the research? Where can we see the background behind the proposal?
So for the net change limit, obviously back in August we said 300 to 500 as a guesstimation based on where we saw the increase of the Treasury. So speaking with the likes of Treasury leads at CF and IOG, we was working on to try and come up with a number that would be acceptable. And don't forget, this is only a proposal, because we can only propose it, the D-reps have to agree it. So we worked and looked at the chain. You can go on to AdaStats and other tooling to see how the Treasury has been growing. So we use things like historical simulations and Monte Carlo, so there's two different variations, to kind of look at projecting where we believe it to go. And literally, it was looking at how much it grew last year, and I believe it grew more than the 350 we're proposing. We felt that was a good first proposed number for the D-reps to assess and understand. And that's really where the information came from. The actual wording in the net change limit, as we was in Buenos Aires listening to people talking about the net change limit and how they would like to govern and control the Treasury. So rather than just saying the net change limit for this period, is for this amount of money, we've actually added additional wording to say is assuming for the life of this net change limit is for every year. So that way, the first net change limit that's approved, when the D-reps approve it, it will be every year thereafter, the same limit will be set until a new net change limit has been put in place. And I would hope that they then use the same type of wording to say, this is then the new period. This is then the new limit for the future years. But there's many discussions to have around how that net change limit can modify and change as we go through. If utilization goes up, the Treasury is being increased more, one may say that the DREPs would like to increase that. And I would be absolutely happy to support them should they wish to increase it for future years, if that's the case.
Well,
Can I add to that, Denise, if possible?
Yeah.
I was just want because on that, I noticed that nothing was submitted when you put this up for socialization. The only documents that were submitted were the Constitution and the definitions. So there was nothing related to the data that was used to come up with the projections of 2025's Treasury growth or not. So, I mean, that's part of, what is needed. That's a socialization part. It's like where we can get into the nitty gritty of stuff. Like this question, there's nothing that we can go in there and look at these projections and where the data that you're using to come up with these projections is coming from. So I think that will be something to address because give you an example. We have this TAO, this whole change TAO proposal right now. And that affects directly how much money comes into a treasury, right? So that will also affect things like this. So what data is being used for this, and will that be possible for you to make it public?
Well, it's good feedback. I mean, I can go back in and extract the information from AdaStats and other toolings to extract what it grew last year and put it into a spreadsheet and attach it to the info action as it goes forward. That's fine. I must admit, I just assumed that people had access to these tools that the community had built that showed you how the growth of the Treasury. And I went, again, right or wrong, maybe I'll point to those toolings because it's these people have built that tooling with that information in mind to show how the Treasury is growing and decreasing, over its lifespan.
I don't think it's a matter of people not knowing that it's there as much as a courtesy to provide it with the information. Just put everything together in one place so they don't have to go and dig for it themselves.
It's in the Constitution. It's part of the justification and the off-chain, justification that has to be attached to governance actions.
Yeah, and I had a few comments on those aspects. So one is, of course, how do you project the income that the Treasury is going to have over time? And we really have never lived a time when the Treasury has been access for spending. And so extrapolating last year's growth to next year is one approach, very, let's say, very wide, high-level approach, because we don't really know the amount of transactions and the price that we will have and how that relates to the spending that we're going to have. So, of course, that would be very, very convenient to have a more formal projection of the income. But you can always get rid of that guessing game if you don't set it as an amount, but as a percentage of the Treasury. So let me go a little bit deeper. If you set it at 350 million or 200 or whatever number that is, and you are exactly right on the amount of income that comes into the Treasury, then you achieve a net change limit of 0, right? So the ending balance is the same one as the starting balance. But if you are wrong, even on either side, then the net change limit as a proportion of the Treasury changes every year. It's not 0. And you're having to guess what my income is going to be next year. And I don't know, because there's so many variables, and you have to have an econometric model, a financial model. So it's hard to forecast. And what's the risk of that? So let's say you set the net change limit and you spend it in 350 million, and then you don't get 350 million in income, but you get 300. Then you diminish the size of the Treasury, and then you still have a net 350 million net change limit for next year. Of course, you can change it, but by default, it's on that number if nothing happens. So now you have the permission to spend proportionally more of a chunk of the treasury that you did last year. So then it becomes a snowball, in which every year it accelerates, and you end up depleting the treasury very fast. So that's why I've been, as loud as I can, suggesting that we don't set the net change limit as an amount of ADA, but we set it as a percentage of the initial balance of the treasury. You get rid of all that guessing game.
This is interesting. Go ahead. Sure. Go ahead.
So that's one concept. Then the second one would be, so as I said before, the net change limit was born not to regulate the amount of spending, but the speed of spending. And with the current design, as it is proposed, there is a major risk. And that is that this is a theoretical thing, of course, but you could get the net change limit at 350 million, get a budget for 350 million, and then get a withdrawal action for 350 million. That's possible. It's not likely, of course, because we have all this wonderful system that have been designed by Lloyd and Lawrence, and then there's a trustable organization in Intersect. But of course, Intersect is still new. We still have our governance things. We're getting getting to learn the ropes, and we're still small, so we're not invulnerable to outside attacks. And it could be possible, theoretically, for this to happen. So you get one governance action for a withdrawal of 350 million January 1st, and you could spend it all. It's not regulated. It's possible. So having shorter periods of time, what aims is not to control the overall spending, but the speed of spending, so that you are never exposed to a huge change or a huge withdrawal, or let's say that Intersect gets that money and for some reason decides to spend it very fast because we've been containing spending for 6 months or for a year. So there's a lot of things that need to be, to catch up in spending. And so for the first 2, 3, 4 months, you spend a lot, and the price goes down. And it's not that we're trying to manipulate price just because we want to, price go up and get a good investment for ADA holders, which is of course nice. There's a security issue in price. That is how SPOs are rewarded. This is how delegators are rewarded. This is how we keep the network secure. So there's resiliency implications in this. So regulating the speed is important, hopefully at the protocol level, so that we don't trust even good institutions such as Intersect.
I want to briefly add to that. Andreas is going to speak, but I want to just quickly add to that. And I think I want to sort of circle back to what Jenny said, right? In terms of sometimes we think very much at the protocol level. What Jose is saying, is very important in terms of the tools. Joe is in the chat. Joe has been talking about tools and simulations forever. So thanks for that contribution, Joe. But what so right now, if we could have our blue sky and be very happy about everything, it will be, as Jose said, because then, we have, whatever it is, maybe it's a simulation, maybe, it's a spreadsheet, like it's very predictable in a way, based on certain parameters that we put in. But at this point in time, the reason that I sort of like how things are now, it's a discussion. We are starting easy. We don't have the tools yet, sort of the predictive tools yet that can tell us, pull back, move forward, pull back, move forward. But one thing that becomes, that we need to remember is the human layer, as Jenny said, because it is not just numbers. Is it possible, for instance, that let's say, one of the most populous countries in the world, is it China? Let's say, by a streak of whatever, we develop something that, the whole Chinese population picks up, right? Like, that is something that it with just one fell swoop, we're going to exponentially increase transaction layer, and that would, in effect, in a way, affect the change the net change limit, and sort of how our long-term sustainability goes. So at this point, we can baby steps. We can try and figure out how we balance our net change limit to our spend and our sustainability and so on and so forth. But there's a big unknown when it comes to the human layer. First of all, how we interact with the blockchain, what the speed of adoption could be. There are so many unknowns. And for me, I think that it's very important that we add that to the bigger discussion. I'll hand it over to Andres. Thanks.
Thank you. Very kind of you. Let me go one step back. And first of all, I would really say my big thank you and gratefulness to Lloyd and to Lawrence and the whole team. I think you guys are doing a great and ungrateful job. I think nobody envies you for what you do. It's amazing. And thank you for that. I think it's not appreciated well enough. So thanks for that. Then I think one of the key elements is that we are in year one in the age of Voltaire, and we are all learning. And if we take, like, I don't know, let's say we have 20,000 community members, we have 20,001 opinions and 20,001 experts. But the ones that sit at the table and actually go through the hard work and put the numbers and crunch it down, that's the budget team together with the various committees. And that's not an easy job. And I think we should very well accept that, and accept also that it's not perfect. And the same is for the net change limit. I mean, it has been based on historic numbers. There has been some simulation with various teams where we anticipate where it should go, where it could go, where the price goes. I mean, how many times, I don't know, Hosky kept on saying 100 times that ADA will never go down below $1. I mean, where are we now? If we all had crystal balls, we would know where it goes, and we would all be filthy rich and happy, but we are just filthy, maybe, and happy. But I would really love to say that, I mean, we need to go somewhere and start. And that's the crucial element, because we can debate endlessly, but we need to start somewhere and get this cracking. Because if we don't get it started, we have not added any more experience. But at the same time, I'm also there to say we need a safeguard, not to overspend. But we all know we have this amazing honeypot, and everybody wants to do good and wants to grow and make something amazing. So we could go over excited and overspend. So it's also a cautious step that we kind of stay within certain boundaries, that we can still measure where the money goes, how we spend it. And at the end of the day, I mean, I'm a very old-fashioned person, old as well, and I come from the old enterprise Web2 side, and actually you only spend as much as you earn. And I think that's going to be a crucial thing for everyone. And today's budget that we have, very well elaborated and worked through from the different committees, but they also need to learn that, hey, we need to consider what's on the income side. I know we have the reserves, I know we have the treasury, but there needs to be sufficient income, as Jose outlined. And this is going to be a crucial element for the years to follow, on which we're going to base the experience that we make now. And I think that's, for me, the most crucial thing. Let's get started. Let's get started with some safeguards, and then we course correct along the line, and we will have a very steep learning curve. I'm absolutely sure after year 1, year 2, 3, 4, and so on, it will be much more professional.
Yeah, there's very little to add to that, if not nothing. Absolutely. So well articulated, Andreas. Absolutely. I do want to say one thing here, because we in the past we've seen, that entities that may have control of data, and I mean, Lawrence, you mentioned based on the question in the chat that there are simulations, there are tools, there are certain, let's say, analysis done on which the net change, sorry, the current net change limit was based. And so I'm just going to tie it back to where I started. Some entities that has the data, that has that information, does not always share that publicly. But if you want to have, let's say, a more broader support from the ecosystem, then I think it's really important to be as transparent as you can. And that's where we see the community now asking, guys, share with us this analysis, this data, these tools that you have. Help us understand the rationale, where it came from. So I just want to tie that back to you, Lawrence. And the question that I think we got that question from Jojo. I'm not 100% sure, but when can we see the sharing of that information that was requested? Is that going to be in a week's time, months, a year? What time frame can the community expect to see that information sharing?
Well, yeah, I mean, for the simulation we did, which is from the blockchain, the ADA stats, I'll drop it out into the Excel and add it to the governance action that's currently in proposal. I should be able to get that done within a week, so there's no issues there. Sorry, I can get it done quite quickly, well before it gets raised on chain, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, perfect. Jojo, I hope if you're still with us, by the way, everyone in the chat joining us on X and on YouTube, thank you all for the wonderful chats, the messages, the questions. It keeps the conversation live. Now, we have 4 minutes official time left on the clock, and there's definitely a few things that I do want to run through here. To wrap this up, what lessons from the current process could help improve the 2026 budget process? And what advice would you give to those who are considering becoming administrators in the future? And I think I'm going to look towards you, Lloyd, being basically the most senior experienced person when it comes to really budgeting.
Thank you, Denisio. And man, like this is like, for me, this is always the drive. I finished this work back in June. Like I set the process in motion and got everybody else was putting the inputs in, and that's just kind of how I like to operate. I'm always looking at that next thing that we're heading toward. What I really genuinely hope comes out of this 2025 budget is that Intersect stands up with leadership for the ecosystem that shows a path forward for everybody else. So just like you said, I hope we set such a good example of dealing with critics, of dealing with problems, of dealing with solutions, of dealing with setbacks, and then also having a process to correct our process, that we set a really good example, and that lots of other people step forward, administer their own budgets, and we come together, and in effect we do get to that original ideal, and it's in a uniquely Cardano fashion, where everybody that is an administrator comes together and we figure out how the budgets work for Cardano, to moving Cardano forward each year. And we're just a seat at the table, a seat amongst peers, and we're all working together to make that happen. And I think that if we set a good example now with all of our actions now to the best of our ability, we'll lay some of that groundwork. And we could write books on this. I think there will be books, and I think there will be peer-reviewed papers at some point on what this all meant. And I'm excited to see those results, but I think we can get there together.
We are, absolutely. Guys, just one question. Let's see, Andreas Polbish. Okay, that's a question here in the chat. I don't want to just pass over one thing that Jose said, and I do want to bring this to the table. Jose said, why not use a percentage instead of a fixed number? That in trying to, let's say, create a more sustainable knowledge model, and I think Andreas also echoed that, maybe by using a percentage, we'd be more closer to that system than the current, let's say, fixed number. What are your thoughts on that, Lawrence, Lloyd?
So I'm happy to answer that. I think The percentages, I think, is okay. I don't disagree with any model, by the way. But like I said, someone has to propose and start somewhere. But if somebody could write down the percentage model, write it into a net change and put it through with the stats and information, we can assess it. At the end of the day, it's down to the D-reps that need to agree this. We picked a number because we believe majority of the people globally would understand what a number meant and understand what that ceiling is. With the percentage, I think there is it could be a variable potential number, which may be more challenging for the community to understand. I don't know. Until we see it written down and really understand what it would look like and mean to the community, can we advise? Like I say, we picked a number. We had to start somewhere, and we just picked the number. But it is down to the D-reps. It is down to the D-reps.
Yeah. I personally, I do love the idea really of that, the percentage. And last question is, was that chosen in agreement, or let's say in kind of communication together with Jose, or was Jose left outside of that conversation?
Well, I think Jose's been involved in many of the conversations. I mean, we've been raising it for a while, since August last year, the number. So it's been continuously communicated around our proposal. But I mean, many people have mentioned the percentage, and we did look at trying to, how would we write that down in a net change limit, and how would that variable then work? And again, just chatting with some of the D-reps, they went back, I think it was the Japanese community, went back to actually the number would make more sense. So some of the D-reps, we picked a number. Like I said, it's, if somebody would like to raise it and put it to the community, I'd happily support it.
Maybe a brief comment on this. So when you pick that 350 million limit, what I understand is that you anticipate what the growth of the budget is going to be next year, and you try to achieve the same number. So what ultimately you are proposing philosophically is a 0% net change limit. So tacitly, that is what you're proposing with that number, a zero change for the Treasury. So if that's a starting point, then that could be a starting point, 0% net change limits. And then you keep the guesswork out of the equation. You know that you are going to end up at least with the same percentage, with the same balance that you had last year.
Okay, perfect. Guys, let's wrap this up, but I would want to allow everyone to say some final words. Lloyd, I know you have to leave, so I'm just going to start with you first. We're going to move from you to Andreas, Jenny, and then start back from the beginning with Mercy, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone who participated today. I've been saying this every day now, and because I believe it, and I hope that the community really can embrace this. Your attention is your most important resource. If you use your attention and share it with us, you're making Cardano better. So thank you for watching today. Thank you for every one of the panelists for your participation. This is exactly how we move governance forward. It's together. It's not a spectator sport. We actually have to get in here and play. So thank you all for your time. I appreciate you, and I'll see all of you real soon.
Yeah, same. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. And I think that's the key thing. I mean, it's not a single sport. It's a team sport. It's a team effort. And we only get better if everyone contributes. And we can only get better if we start somewhere. So it's going to be baby steps at the beginning. So let's do the first step, get this net change limit out. And if in next year we need to make it in a percentage, then that's already the first great idea for next year. Let's get cracking. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming here today. I enjoyed this time a lot. Just a shout out to all of you working on this, everybody behind the scenes, the community who's constantly trying to search for information. Let's just try to be constructive about the things that we say. Constructive dissent is something that I like to put always out there. It's okay. That's what we're here to do. And to that, just go to the forum, the Cardano forum, and put in your thoughts in there. If you have any strong thoughts or questions, go in there, ask your question, find the net change limit, the budgets, and just participate. And thank you.
Yes, it's been amazing sharing this with all these smart people. And thanks everyone that made time to join us. As Lloyd said, we really, really value the attention to this. Let's keep contributing. Let's bring ourselves. You know, for me, it's always been, yes, great protocol. You know, when it comes to protocol, Cardano, you know, we've got it. But at the end of the day, it's really the humans, you know, and how they contribute and what they bring. That is where the exponential is. And that is completely unpredictable. You know, it is what we will make of it, how many people get involved. So thanks, everyone. It's been amazing.
I'll go ahead and go next then. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, paying attention. Of course, thank you everybody on this roundtable. I feel like I meet with you guys every week anyways. But this was fun. This was good. And most importantly, I want to touch on what Jenny said, to go to the forums, make sure you get your questions answered, make sure you provide your feedback, and most importantly, make sure your DREP knows what you think, what you want. Make sure you are delegated to a DREP who is going to best represent you. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you everybody on the panel. It's been a great conversation, and just thank you to all the INSEC committees and the members of INSEC that have spent their own free time, personal time building out the budgets and the information. They put a lot of effort in to get to get the budgets to where they are. And there is a proposal. It is out there for discussion. It's on the Cardano forum. It's on the websites. We have many Zoom calls and meetings, open calls with people. Please come and join them. Make your view known. We can understand if we take in any feedback and any format, but if it's written into the Cardano forum, they go back to the committees meet and review the comments and the feedback and pivot and update accordingly. So please provide your feedback and improve our processes.
Yeah, once again, I enjoy a lot working with this amazing group of people. People that is committed to making Cardano better and to changing the world. It's not just what we do, but also how we do it. That is great. This has been just another demonstration that we are amongst very passionate and smart people that are just trying to create the best version of Cardano that we can. So I invite everyone to join us actively. This is not a spectators game, as Lloyd said. This is one of many discussions that we're going to have. So join us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just want to say thanks to everyone that joined online, on X, on YouTube. You spent your hour now here with us, a bit more than an hour. So thank you for doing that. Thanks to all the volunteers that have participated so far in this governance process, right? Not just with drafting the budget proposals or the Constitution. I mean, I'm also thinking about everyone that joined in the CIP 1694 workshops. And governance for me, right, it can only be successful if we are truly inclusive. And that means that we allow everyone in the world that is part of the Cardano community to participate. And I think we have done so far a very good job with that. But we cannot just now rest and say, okay, now everything's done. We need to continue to do that. And for me, this is one of the most important things. I think we should also continue. So again, if you have not yet registered your stake to a stake pool, please do so. Make sure that you delegate your voting power either to a DREP or you register yourself as a DREP. Highly recommend you register one as yourself if you have the time. And don't forget to just participate in governance, because that's the only way we can, make it a success and continue.
Andreas, any closing words?
No, I mean, I'm just always amazed how much Nico loves governance. It's just, this is his true passion. Amazing. Love it. No, but thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day. And don't forget, as soon as the net change limit comes out, don't forget to vote and participate.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to close it out. Thank you all for joining. It's been a pleasure having each and every one of you here. Lloyd, unfortunately, had to leave a bit earlier. But thank you, every single one of you here on the panel, and also who joined us live on YouTube and on Twitter, on X. It's amazing. It's a ride. It's a journey. It's the first year. We're gaining experience. But as someone said before, don't be just a spectator. You are part of an ecosystem, and your ADA counts. You have a voice. Don't just sit back, but make sure your voice is heard, because that matters as well. Thank you all, and have a great evening. Until next time, take care.